So it's Thursday, meaning we once again have new unemployment numbers from last week. The numbers are not good. 2.4 million more people filed for unemployment benefits last week. And this in total now is starting to be staggering, just unconscionable numbers when we total up the job losses from these 9 or so weeks of coronavirus unemployment pandemic era. Maybe it's 10 weeks at this point, something like that. We are now at 38.6 million jobs lost. If on February 1st, anybody had said, my prediction is by June 1st, we will have lost 40 million jobs, which is what it will probably be after we add another week or two of numbers, I don't think anybody would have believed it. Now, if you want to find some kind of like it could be worse type of thing in the numbers, what we can point to is at least the numbers are declining each week in terms of new people losing their jobs. In early April, each week we had like more than 6 million people file for new unemployment benefits. And then by the end of April, early May, we were at 4 million a week, 3 million a week. And it sounds crazy, but that number is now down to only 2.4 million more jobs lost last week. So in a sense, we're seeing a decreased rate of people losing their jobs. But once again, even with these diminishing numbers, by mid-July, we could be at 50 million people having lost their jobs. Now, let's do a little bit of context because this is important. When we talk about this, the total workforce before the pandemic hit was estimated at 158 million people. So the country has 331 million people. Many of those are children. Many of those are retired people. So the active working labor force was believed to be 158 million people. So 38.6 million losing their jobs means that 24.4, call it 25%, about a quarter of the American workforce lost jobs during the coronavirus pandemic. Now, we've got to adjust those numbers a little bit one way, a little bit the other way. One reality is these are probably underestimates because there are lots of people who lost jobs, but for one reason or another didn't file unemployment benefits. There may be people who lost a job, but they're independently wealthy or have another source of income or whatever, and they just decided, I'm not going to go through the hassle of filing unemployment. That's a small group of people. You have a larger group of people who would file an unemployment claim, except it's what we might call a marginal job or a job that is under the table, in which case you wouldn't be able to file for unemployment benefits. And there is still some fraction of people who have just been struggling to get the claim in because systems have been overloaded. Unemployment is run at the state level, 50 states, 50 different systems. Some are mostly phone, some are online, combination of the two. So in a sense, these numbers are probably too low. Now, on the other side of this, there are people who lost jobs early on, but have found new jobs. So we have a cumulative total of 38.6 million unemployment claims in the last 9, 10, 11 weeks. But some of those people who lost their job in March, for example, have found a new job. We don't know exactly what number that is, but there are businesses that have been hiring, delivery-based businesses, grocery stores, places like Amazon and others have been hiring. So some of the people that lost jobs have found new jobs. Now, what we can be sure of is, given this bad news, the stock market is going to do really, really well today. And I'm sort of kidding, but we've seen a stock market that's increasingly divorced from the unemployment news. Now, as we've talked about before, stock markets often react to how the news compares to expectations. So these new numbers of about 2.44 million more people losing their jobs last week, it's more or less in line with expectations. So it may not move the market very, very much. So what we may actually see really shake up the stock market would be the numbers that we're going to get about the second quarter in total. So Q2 earnings and Q2 GDP may be numbers that really move the stock market, potentially down, but maybe not. So first, you've got earnings seasons. How much did companies make during the second quarter? And typically we get those numbers for the second quarter, which is April, May, June. Around July 15th, we'll start to get earnings numbers from companies, and that may push the market up. It may pull the market down. Then we will get GDP numbers even later on. So we'll get initial GDP estimates for the second quarter on July 30th. and then we'll get more accurate second quarter GDP estimates towards the end of August. So realize that we are not going to know the full scope of what happened in this quarter right now, essentially until mid to late August, almost September in practice. There are predictions that we could see a 20% GDP decline in Q2, 25%. One estimate said 35%. That's certainly on the very high end. So this is about suffering. It's not about politics. But we can't ignore that historically bad GDP numbers, the worst GDP numbers the country has ever seen, 8 weeks before a presidential election. We will know the full scope of those numbers again, late August. That may be very, very bad for Donald Trump. Now, for now, as states have been improving on their coronavirus numbers and putting in place plans to get some portions of their state economies back to work, my hope is, because again, for me, this is not political. I want things to improve economically and medically as quickly as is reasonably possible. Some portions of people are going to be getting back to work. Hopefully things will tick up a bit, or at least continue ticking down less. And reminder that the most important takeaway here, if we want to take what's going on and turn it into action for the long term, we've got to fix the problem now, of course. Over the long term, the lesson here is even economies that look really good by all of the traditional indicators are really, really fragile. Our lack of preparedness has been exposed here. There will be more pandemics. There are going to be more downturns. We can't control that. What we can control is the underlying fragility of our economic system, and it's been exposed as very, very fragile.